Figure we'd start this week just talking some about what's happened the last couple of games. We'll go back to Sunday first. A pretty big win for you guys down there in Nashville. Got off to a huge lead, of course, and then kind of hung on. Were you proud of the guys for making free throws down the stretch, all that kind of stuff, to hang on and win that game?
I think when through the course of the season, you got to be tested and tested the right way. You got to feel like you're going to lose, you're going to struggle, and then you find a way to figure it out. That builds character for your players. And of course, as a coach, you want it different. You want them to be smooth sailing. But on the road, there's no shoulda did this, shoulda did that on the road. When you get a win, you're extremely happy, especially against a league that may steal bids away from ours. So anytime we can cross another high major league and get a win, that's good for our conference.
Man, your guards, obviously, Cam, Barry, and then even Xavier Sneed on the wing, all around the 20-point mark in that game. Was that the best game those three have played collectively as a group in a while?
Absolutely, probably ever. Because X was a bench guy last year, so he had some good games, but he was limited to because of the older guys, because of Wesley and Dean, and that's who he kind of subbed in for, one of those two. But collectively, that's one of the better games I've seen here since we've been at K-State, since I was in Rodney's group, when you had Angel and Rodney and Will, Martaves. You had that group that could come in and get a bunch of points and do it the right way.
And then another guy too, Levi Stockard comes in and hits, I think, 5 of 6 free throws and didn't seem shaken by playing on the road and that kind of thing. Were you guys pretty pleased with how he played in that game?
Yeah, we're pleased, because the others were struggling, and he was calm. He's really laid back anyway, and to do what he did in that type of pressure as a true freshman on the first true road game, he saved us, to be honest. Because a lot of freshmen fold when they're 1-and-1s, and you have to make those free throws to keep the team at bay. So it allows you to look into somebody's eyes and know that they hey, this kid really is competitive. He wants to win, and he's going to do whatever it takes.
I was curious if you fast forward to last night against USC Upstate. Probably a silly thing to ask, but a week ago you guys kind of struggled against Oral Roberts, and then last night blew them out from the start. Did you guys discuss, hey, last week we weren't sharp against a team like this, and tonight we have to be? Was that part of the conversation?
Yeah, it was a big part of the conversation, because we wanted to make sure they understood. Showing up's not good enough. And sometimes when you have these games, kids see their record and they just think, well, I'm gonna get a career high. I know I did that as a player. When we played bad teams, I'm thinking, okay, I'm about to get my game on right now. Forget what coach said. I know what they average, and I know they're not as good as we are. So it's the fight of that. It's the fight of having your kids realize that you can get better against an opponent that people deem inferior to you just by doing the right things.
I noticed weird little stuff, and this might be silly, but you guys, you wore the gray uniforms last night. You don't see that a lot at home. Was there any thought behind, hey, we're making this game feel like it's important for this reason to get, or was that just a random put on the gray and have fun with it?
It's big game gray, so that's kind of the deal, that we wanted to make them understand that this game was very important. And when players are instinctive, and when you feel a certain way, they feel a certain way. And they see coach going crazy about this game, they're like, okay, we really got to be focused when we get back. And we had a one day prep, really a half day prep, and turn around and get focused on these guys and understand their schemes and takeaways. Our first 5, they were so locked in to start the game. It was just impressive that everything they tried to do, we knew, and we took it away.
Cam Stokes last night was 5 of 6 from 3 in the first half. He's over 50% for the year. How sustainable is the way he's shooting the basketball? It's amazing, right?
It's one of those deals where when a player's hot like that, you don't talk about it with them, because as soon as you do, the mental stuff kicks in, and they may miss 3 or 4, and now they go into the skid. So we just, Cam's a good player. He's, and we know that, and he knows that, and we just want him to do the other things and not turn it over, get assists, and defend. Those are the things that are important to us. What he does offensively is a credit to his work ethic and him being a junior. He's been a 3-year starter basically, so we expect him to be a good offensive player.
I was probably myself critical of Mac and Maudo coming off the Vandy game, and then last night they both shot it really well, rebounded with more aggressiveness. Did they have something to prove last night to you guys?
Well, I think it was a little more than having something to prove. They had some fire lit up under them, and there's no way you should let a true freshman come in and play the lion's share of minutes when it's gut check. It's either win or lose. And we told them that, and we really reinforced the fact that even though you're new here, you guys have a little more experience playing on the college level than he does. So it was good. They responded, and we're going to continue to do it by committee because that's what we have to do with that position.
I'm curious, something like maybe you guys aren't even aware, but you guys are getting votes down the AP Top 25. I think if you extend the poll out, you'd be 35th. I know it's early in the season. There's a lot of stuff going on. Maybe rankings don't matter, but is the team aware of that? Do they have motivation to get a number by their name and be ranked?
I mean, they have smartphones.
Yeah.
Of course they have iPhones. I mean, they know everything. They knew before we did. When the votes came out, they obviously were texting on the group text.
Right.
They understand what it is, and you want your kids to want that. I mean, that's a big part of college basketball or any team sport, to be ranked or to have your peers vote you high. But the good thing about it, our whole league is like that.
Right.
So I think that we've seen our league be special, and we've seen our league have some great wins, and we just got to continue that. And our focus isn't on getting ranked as a staff.
Sure.
It's on getting better, and when you get better, you get the stuff that the kids want and you want.
Obviously, you guys will play, Tulsa and Wichita on Saturday. Coach Weber said something interesting last night. I thought in the post game on the radio, he talked about games like that give you a little bit of a feel being in a tournament, playing at a different building and that kind of stuff. Do you look at that as an opportunity to put them in an environment that's different and see how they react to it?
Yeah, it's good. I think when we played in Vegas, that was great.
Right.
To be in a different environment. It's not home. To go to Vandy. Now we're going to obviously to Wichita and then go to Washington State. So we have not played in Manhattan enough times for these guys to feel comfortable about not being at home. With Tulsa, they're extremely rugged and physical. Like when we see them on tape, they're like grown men physically, and you look, and I'm like, this team is this reminds you of a really good mid-major team, not very tall, but extremely physical and tough.
One other thing I'm curious about as relates to the team right now is I saw James Love maybe a little more active last night in pregame than he had been before, and then McGurl was pretty active. Do you guys know where you're at with those two as far as their status?
James is actually doing workouts again.
Yeah.
So obviously we're pleased with that because he's a guy who could change everything up front for us. Just because he knows and he's big and he's a shot blocker and a rebounder.
Right.
We know his strengths. They haven't been unleashed on anybody yet.
Right.
Nobody knows, but we know. And I think that with him, just get moving again and be pain-free, and that's our whole deal. We're going to make sure he's pain-free before we bring him back. And he's been 2 days of getting cracked, and he's been fine. So, we're going to slowly maneuver and get into it, and maybe, hopefully, you say if he's practicing by Washington State, we'd like to take a look at him. Obviously, we'd like to see him at SEMO before we even get to that.
Of course.
But we're not going to push him. And Mike is, his foot is still not where it needs to be. But, anytime you deal with hot spots and stresses, and you got to be really careful, especially with big guys like James, because that could change their life.
Of course.
Foot injuries have eliminated a lot of basketball players, pro, college, high school, especially big body kids like James.
With Mike, do you get to a point, we're 9 games in, and I know you love to have the depth, and I know he was one of the guys that was talked about as being a big surprise in the summer, but you get to a point where you just shut him down and take the red shirt with him?
Well, I think Coach doesn't make people red shirt. And
right.
When you think about the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be on his part. You would think that seeing what's in front of you and seeing how those 2 guys are juniors, playing 1 year behind them or 2 years behind is what makes the most sense. And obviously, it's a family decision too.
Right.
And just want to make sure he understands, where it's at and lay it out in front of him, and then go from there. But right now, the approach is to continue to just try to make sure he's healthy before we bring him all the way back.
Sure. I'm curious to change topics and go a little more big picture to talk about recruiting some with you this week. And we know we can't talk about names and that kind of thing, and that's perfectly fine. But people can go on websites and look at the level of player you guys are recruiting for 2019. My first question, is that common? Is that the kind of player you've been going after your entire time here at K-State, or is it different for that recruiting class?
We've been trying to get good players since we've been here. I mean, if you think about it, Dean's top 100.
Yep.
X, obviously, he was a heralded guy. When you get Malik Harris was top 7. So we've been recruiting those type of guys. Some of them, we had J.P. McCure on a visit, and Marcus Foster just kicked his butt on the visit. We were just like, oh, God. Please. So, it's one of those deals where we've had a lot of really good players on campus. And just see how they fit with your guys. And,
right.
This is the reason why it's more transparent now, is because we don't have any seniors.
Yeah.
So we can actually go out and really hit further down the road instead of just being focused on 1 year to 1 year. So that's why it's more transparent, and that's why you see actually what we're doing right now. And obviously, you guys are covering it too. Right. So it's been a little bit of a hiatus of people knowing what we're doing, and so now I think people know a little more. We've been extremely transparent always, but I think the biggest thing is that when you can say we need to focus on the 5 we got in 2019 and don't worry about 2018. Yep. We've had a bunch of kids on campus. We're working a bunch of kids, and just hope to hit pay dirt on some of those 19s. I'm curious, when you're building a recruiting board in the NBA, you hear the argument all the time about whether they go after best player regardless of position or need. Yeah. For the college program, what's that like? Do you have to look at the needs of your roster, or do you try to get the best 3, 4, 5 kids that you think you can get? Well, I think when you talk about us, it's not the best money can buy. Right. I mean, it's not it's not built on that. Correct. And I think it's more built on, say for instance, Dean Wade. Yeah. When we got to have a guy who's skilled enough, and it doesn't always have to be 6'10", but they got to be able to shoot threes and in our grand scheme of things, when we're good, we have high IQ 4-men that have some size or can shoot the basketball. From Shane Southwell, we had a gap. Now you have Dean, and now that's when we've gone, up again, because of the fact that the 4-men are so important in Bruce's scheme of things, because we want to use it as a mismatch position with ball handling, shooting, IQ, initiating offense. And you see Dean, he's got, which is crazy, 26, 27 assists and 4 turnovers. Right. Which is phenomenal. And had a turnover it's phenomenal. Yeah. So, we use him. He passes too much. That's we understand that. But when you watch him play, Dean touches it a lot. Yep. Whether he shoots it or not depends on him. Right. And I think you saw a little bit more of Vandy. We needed him to go, but X went. Right. And that's the beauty of our team. They fill each other out, and they know when to go and when not, and see who's hot and who's not. And it's not always like that, especially when you're younger. You just go, or you think it's my turn, or I'm next. And we've gotten away from that, and they seem to understand each other's tendencies. But going back to recruiting, we got to have somebody ready to go, who can do the type of things Dean can. Maybe not that high a level, but be a good enough player where we can still do some of the same things and raise them up the same way we did Shane and then Dean. You said last week, you talked about loving to have guys who can touch the top of the backboard and be great athletes. Is that what you look for most in recruiting? And then you have other guys, maybe like Coach Weber, that kind of stuff, who look more for maybe the skill as opposed to the athleticism? You know what? It's all of it. But it just depends on what position. Right. Like, we knew we needed a wing that could, that's why we needed a runner, jumper guy to score and defend. Right. So we targeted a guy with similar abilities to Xavier. So now, Coach usually likes his point guards to be able to shoot. So we got to find another guy who can shoot the basketball, initiate, defend, win Stokes leads. And Coach likes his 2 guards to be tough and just bulldogs and guys who can score and not just be shooters. So I think that's the scheme of things, what we got to do. Now, the other thing is this. James Love is an enigma because we don't know. Right. There's some guys we don't know how they're going to develop. So we may need to get it, let's say our continued development of our bigs doesn't end up where we thought it would, then we got to go get a juke big. We got to go get somebody who can right now, and that's the biggest thing. You don't always know, but a lot of it depends on your development inside. And when you got it set up, it's easier to know where you want to go and how you want it to be in the future. But again, when your guys develop inside, it changes even to the next year. James Love develops and does. We're like, okay, we don't need another big in 19. We got to get something else because he's taking a step. And so, I mean, that's kind of how we do it.
Without putting words in your mouth, I don't want to do that, but you talk about what you're looking for in players, and you've got a point guard who can shoot right now. You've got a 2-guard who is a bulldog. You've got a small forward, just like you described, an X. You have a very versatile 4. Are you pretty close to having almost a prototypical, starting lineup for what you look for at K-State?
Absolutely. Just for Bruce Weber, that can, we can run his motion stuff. They can do his concepts. That can do his defensive schemes.
Right.
Those are important. And I think. We always talk about the rebuild had to be the right way.
Of course, yeah.
And it's understandable that when you don't know why, you get upset.
Right.
Because it's your team. When it's your team, it's your team.
Exactly.
You live and die with your team. And the rebuild was the right way. We built it to get to this point.
Right.
Again, how we had it in the beginning before we had a hiccup. So when you put those things together, you see, oh, wow. That kid is like this kid. That kid is like that kid. This is where they're trying to go with it. So, and then you're trying to develop a bench in the same instance. So, at some point, those bench guys got to grow up and be good players. And that's we keep saying this stuff about Cardi and Cam. And Cardi is really shooting the ball well.
Right.
So, we're thinking, like, we got to get another guard that can shoot. And we're like, damn, well, Cardi's already shooting the ball, exceeded where we thought he would shoot the ball with his athleticism and all the other stuff. So his development can sway our continued thinking process and need for that point guard position in the future.
The last thing I'll probably ask today, just down on recruiting and then finish it up, would be every school has different things they sell to kids, and K-State has a great tradition of basketball success, and even recently in the last 5 years we talk about 3 tournaments, but what is there anything that you guys sell to kids that us as fans don't know about that's a bigger draw to K-State than the casual fan or a media member would think about?
I think the toughest thing is to get people here.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that fans don't understand. You're like, you should want to come to K-State. But if you look at where we got to draw from, Texas and the major cities, there's not a lot of great high school kids where you say, like back in the day, you look at K-State's roster, they had some really big-time players from the state, and it's not that way anymore. I mean, it's just not. And if you look at our roster and Kansas roster, it doesn't show a Kansas lean.
Yeah, Dean's the only
one, and there's not a lot of Dean Wades in Western Kansas walking around. That's a special deal. He's a very different case. But I think when you look at it, when we get them here, people are shocked.
Yeah,
and they say things like, "Man, I thought this would be a country town. I thought this." But the facilities wow people, and I think that's the thing to John Curry's credit that he got our wow factor way up.
Yep.
Because when guys come back and they say, "Man, we didn't have any of this," and I'm like, "What do you mean? Like we didn't have hotels out there, we have restaurants."
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're just like, "Wow." Like, you wonder why they came.
Right.
And that's a credit to the people here, and that's the one thing that I say that it's amazing how. I'm with Shane Southwell. We go out to eat. I take him to lunch or dinner, and the amount of people that love him. And that type of stuff is invaluable because you never lose sight of you're the big man on campus. And as a player, that's a great feeling to know that my blood, sweat, and tears was recognized. Because I think sometimes when kids play somewhere and they leave, they think, that you hear that cheering for you be over.
Right.
But when you come back and they're like, "Oh, we remember you. You're my favorite player. You're my son's favorite player. He's a grown up now."
We still get asked for Shane Southwell for interviews at our site.
So that's the biggest thing is this place embraces its athletes. It embraces nostalgia, history. It just embraces the fact that we want our players and former players to come back.
Right.
And that's a great thing because not every place is like that.
Exactly. Hey, appreciate it, Coach. Can I bring you back next week again?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks.